to yap a little bit. I don't know how long I'll yap, but I'm going to yap a little bit. If you think about a republic or a democracy, it means that you're going to lose and compromise, and that's really really good. Um, the premise, I suppose, behind an authoritarian style of government is that the leader knows best, and the leader knows all, and you must comply. That compliance language is leads to authoritarianism. Why don't you just comply? If you were to comply, nothing bad would happen to you. So the premise behind an autocratic authoritarian style of government is that one person, or in an oligarchical style government, a select few elitist people are going to make the best decisions for everybody. In medicine, we call that paternalism, that your doctor knows best and just follow the doctor's orders and you'll be fine. This is a model of governance that people are drawn to. I'm no sociologist, so it's not my expertise or place to talk about why that is so attractive to people. But on the face of it, I think just in like the rough contours of the landscape here, authoritarian style government just assumes as a premise that one leader or a small group of very powerful people know what's in the best interest for everyone. And I think that is a deeply flawed approach. The idea behind a republic or a democracy means that all people together, through a model of self-governance, that they know what's best. That if you speak to the people who are living the experiences, that those people who are actually living experiences will know better than one person who is detached from those experiences. And there are all sorts of things that you in a democracy, you're just going to lose sometimes. And part of living in some sort of a democratic republic means that you have to accept that your position will not be the best for all applications, and that you have to persuade or convince others that you have a vision for the future, and you have to help people buy into that vision, and then not merely to buy in to follow the leader, but to buy in to a point where everybody's multiple perspectives are incorporated into that vision for the future. So as you are helping to persuade people to adopt the position that you hold, you have to help them understand what's in it for them, but you also have to be responsive to their feedback. So if somebody's like, hey, I think by and large this is a good idea, but I wish you would think about A, B, and C, then you have to be responsive to that. And then you have to incorporate A, B, and C into the broader vision. So it's a slower style of governance. It's a governance where you have to compromise, where you won't always win, you won't always come out on top. But that's what it means to be in democracy. It means that you're going to have a more flat hierarchy where everybody, from an egalitarian standpoint, where everybody is allowed to have a say in shaping governance in the present and in the future. You just don't get to win all the time in democracy. So it requires not holding up winning as the highest good, but holding up human flourishing is how we'd put it in old philosophical terms. That you have to hold up human flourishing as the highest good, and then admit that your one perspective may not be the best perspective to speak to human flourishing for everyone. So you have to be comfortable with compromise. You have to be comfortable with being wrong. You have to be comfortable with taking into account other people's perspectives and other people's opinions. And that means that you have to let, all of those multiple perspectives rise to the top. It is navigating a diverse, multicultural landscape, which is what we have. And I think if you look at what has been attractive in modern conservatism, it has been about winning. It has been about coming out on top. And we have so many perspectives to point to talk about this. The way that people will frame rights for the LGBTQ community. People will frame that, people that are opponents of equal rights will try to sell you on an idea that LGBTQ community wants special rights and all they want is equality. That's what they want. That the rights that are available to you know, heteronormative couples, that those same rights ought to be available to LGBTQ people. And this is up and down. It's one of the things that giving other people rights doesn't mean that you are giving up your own rights. The idea is that it's not zero sum, that when it comes to rights and human rights, when it comes to human flourishing, when it comes to protecting individuals, regardless of viewpoint, you have to understand that there is not a limit to rights. That rights, there's plenty of rights to go around for everyone. That doesn't mean, or what that means, is that your particular viewpoint is merely one viewpoint among many. And in a democratic republic, we want the majority view to ultimately rule, but that doesn't mean that the majority rule suppresses minority opinions. It's that minority opinions must be incorporated into protections for those groups so that you might follow majority rule, but it always has protection accommodations for minority viewpoints. Because we want to rule by majority does not mean that we suppress minority views. That the whole idea behind a democratic republic, when exercised faithfully, is that every single voice matters as much as any other voice. And what I notice in modern conservatism is that people don't like that idea. That people really do feel entitled to their perspective and opinion being one that is dominant over other perspectives and opinions. And we see this in the way that people will talk about special rights. We'll see this in the way that people talk about if you have a pride flag somewhere, that's shoving that viewpoint down your throat, which just isn't correct. Because you disagree with an opinion does not thereby mean that your viewpoint doesn't matter. And how many historical examples can we point to, even in recent history? The whole BLM movement just means that we're fighting for equitable considerations of all populations. And that means that sometimes if you're in a powerful class, if you're in a majority class, that you will have to make concessions and that you will have to compromise and that you will have to say, okay, I have a viewpoint that I think is right, but that doesn't give me the permission to oppress or to suppress other viewpoints. So, this takes a higher level of emotional intelligence, of executive functioning, of social emotional learning, because you have to learn to compromise and you have to learn to see beyond yourself. And you have to try to stretch your moral imagination to imagine what if you were embodying the lives of others. And it's hard for us to understand that without the lived experience of that. So you have to expand your personal sort of network of relationships to make sure that in your day-to-day lives that you're exposing yourself to ideas that are different from your own. And you've got to read books and watch movies and stuff like this made by people who do not look exactly like you or do not have the experience exactly like you. That part of being in a democratic republic means that you are challenging and stretching your moral imagination at all times to consider the lives of others that are not your own. And it's hard work to do that. And it takes concessions and it takes compromise and it takes the ability to admit when you've made mistakes. And it takes the ability to say, I'm not always going to be right. I'm not always going to win. And acknowledging that the world is not a zero-sum world. That every time you extend something to another person, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have less of that thing for yourself. So these are the principles of living cooperatively in some sort of democratic republic. And it takes hard work. And it takes the ability to be wrong and the ability to say, I screwed up, but I realize that for the good of all of us together, that I acknowledge when I screw up. And then I try to make corrections in my viewpoints and in my behavior to accommodate others and to correct the behavior that I've recognized is wrong. So autocracy is easy, because it puts one leader at the top and says, just comply and fall in line and you'll be fine. A democratic republic is hard because it's more intellectually challenging. It's more emotionally challenging. You've got to give up your commitment to always being right. It's harder, but we can do hard things.